Hey guys, I'm the Gamry Cat, and welcome to another Terraria video. This one is going to be a explanation of what my graphs even are, because they've kind of gotten away from me. In the last 3 days I've worked for, what is this? 8.5 plus 2, 10.5 plus 6. So like 16.5 hours changing. I don't know if upgrading is the right word. I'm pretty sure upgrading might be an accurate word to fit this, but oh boy. So I've added a bunch of shit. The reason this is so wide is because I have this thing down here, which is how I'm going to determine actually how good items are. Because I ran into instances where items that did the exact same damage were not as good as one another, and there was no way to determine how good an item was just based on DPS. So there had to be other factors that decided the value of items. So I have manipulating blocks, which for this particular list, DPS, it's not that good. I suppose I should add that to here. DPS value. Because we are going to do a list for like mining and exploration and all the other fun stuff that makes Terraria so great. So this one specifically for DPS, being able to mine stuff or mine axe or hammer stuff is only 1% increased value to the item, and if it doesn't work underwater, then that's negative only. Hitbox is reasonable to hit enemies with. It can be only 1% hindrance to up to 99%, depends how bad it is. And then unable to grow plants. These two are just for the staff of regrowth, and because it's a really special item. And then minion fights on its own regardless of player input, and doesn't steal enemy invincibility frames from the player. And if it does, it's on the right, and it depends how bad it is, it will go up and hinder that item up to 99%. But if it does fight on its own, then it is invaluable. It is going to give that item a 5 times increase. And knockback, if it's equal to... Wait, knockback is greater or less than or equal to 3. So if it's greater than 3, then nothing happens. But if it's 3 or worse, then it goes down by 0.1 because its knockback is so bad. And then we have use time is greater. It's greater than 30, and that does nothing. And if it's less than 30, no. I feel like use time is the lower it is, the better. So use time. Okay, I wrote this wrong. I just gotta switch these two words. Less, greater. Because if it's less than or equal to 30, then it's pretty fast. And if it's 30 or slower or greater, then it's bad. So it's going to be 10%. It's less valuable. And then use time, blah blah blah. Item isn't capable of auto swing. Auto swing is really valuable. If it isn't capable of auto swing, it's not a hindrance, but if it is, it's 10% more valuable. Item fires projectiles that do not consume ammo or mana. And if they do consume ammo or mana, I consider that a 10% hindrance to the item, or a 100% boost to the item if it does not. And feel free to give me your opinion on these, by the way. I may disagree, but you obviously are going to disagree with me as well, so a second opinion would be helpful. If you consider any of these stats more valuable, give me a reason why, and I'll think about it. Maybe we can get something more accurate, because this is a team effort. Getting stats more accurately documented in Terraria. Then, if the projectiles fired by the item are affected by gravity or are not. If they're not affected by gravity, nothing happens, but if they are, 1%. That's not too big of a deal, but it's a thing that is a minor annoyance. And then, item fires projectiles that are not affected by randomness or are affected by randomness. If nothing random exists, nothing happens, but if they are affected by randomness, and when I say randomness, I mean it could be anything random, but an easy thing to compare this to is the spread shot on a shotgun, or the spread shot on the Star Wrath's stars that come from this guy. So it's like random, so it's 10% not as valuable. Then debuffs, if it inflicts debuffs on the enemy or doesn't. If it doesn't inflict debuffs, nothing happens, but if it does, it's a 50% boost to that bonus, or that value. And if the use time is 8, is greater or equal to 8, or is less than 8. I think I messed this up again. Is less. Less on use time is more valuable. Greater. If use time is less or equal to 8, then it is 50% more valuable because this item has a really fast use time. And if it's greater than 8, nothing happens. And if knockback is greater or equal to 12, then you get a 50% bonus, but if it's less than 12, then it is extremely strong knockback. 12 is where it becomes insanely strong knockback, and that's where it becomes just a regular item. But if it's insanely strong knockback, it gets a 50% bonus boost to its value. And that's basically what I'm thinking for value. All my stats, I created a tier list, and I'll probably go all the way down to Z, but I don't know if anything's that bad. Okay, so I'm already thinking, for the next video, by the way, the imp staff, I'm pretty sure it's around B tier. We'll figure out if that's accurate when I do the video, but I just wanted to make this video first so everybody knows what's going on with the fucking graphs. Because I'm not explaining it in the imp video, because as you can see, it's already been 7 minutes, and I only want that video to talk about really the imp staff and the hornet staff. I don't want it to be like an hour-long video where 40 minutes of it is explaining these graphs. Or I guess graphs aren't the right word, it's spreadsheets. Okay, so any other changes that I have made other than the tiers? I've added stacks and mana cost, and if the item works underwater, if the item grants a buff, what the buff's name, what the tooltip of that buff is. These are all normal. Knockback's normal, method of use is normal, summons minion is new, minion knockback is new, minion width is new, height is new. If the minion has a hitbox on it, if the minion is a rushdown kind of enemy, or if it's a projectile enemy, if the minion's projectile passes through, like this is how many targets it passes through, and then if the minion projectile works underwater, and then the minion projectile's use time, the cooldown between its shots, and then the minion projectile height, width and height, and the minion projectile hitbox width and height, and then we got the minion projectile velocity, minion projectile duration, how far it can go before it disappears, and weapon width is all normal, this is normal, use time is normal. Weapon projectile working underwater is new. I don't think any of this is anything special. Weapon projectile max, weapon projectile type, this is all the same. I don't want to miss anything. Flicks debuff, debuff duration, debuff. This is new. Debuffs maximum damage per one target hit. Essentially, if you hit a target once and a debuff is inflicted, how much damage does that one infliction of that debuff do? Like, for an example, poison does 2 damage per second. If you hit a target once, how much damage will it take over that 6 seconds? And the answer is 12. And then we got 3 targets, 5 targets, 10, and 20. That's the amount of targets I currently use. I may add 100 in the future. But for now, we're just sticking with this many because no items have needed more than 20 targets. I'm assuming items like the last prism, maybe for a few more mage items will require 100 targets. But for now, I don't see that as necessary. And then we have debuff DPS against 1 target. 3 targets, 5, 10, and 20. That's all been there. And block reach, mining, best reforged has all been here. Crafting recipe 1 and 2. Crafted add is the same. Drop from, drop chance from chest. Kind of chest. Chest location from crate. Crate variety. Crate fishing location. Fishing quest reward. Fishing reward. Fishing reward location. Sold by, sold, or buy from, or buy for, sell for, and auto swinging. These are all the same. Value. This is new. So those values I was going through before are every item starts at 100% value or just a value of 1. And each of those values we went through over here all of these add or subtract this number, which, if you're wondering what the hell this number means, it essentially is the amount of value that the DPS is multiplied by. Because each item's value on a DPS leaderboard is determined by their DPS against 1, 3, 5, 10, and 20 targets. You will usually not fight more than that, and it's impossible to fight negative targets. So those are the stats you look for when you're deciding the DPS value of an item. So what this is a way of determining the value of an item beyond just simply looking at their DPS. Other factors, which are right here and also down there, this is just a simplified version, while down there, the thing I showed you twice, is the more complex version. These are the stats of each of these items after adding bonus effects. So you have the Hornet Staff, it starts at 1, and it is a minion fighting of its own accord, so it gains 5 points, or 500% bonus. So it's up at 6, and then it also inflicts a debuff, so another 50% bonus, or 0.5. So the maximum, all the DPS the Hornet does will be multiplied by 6.5, and that is the actual value of the item. And for worse items, as to use these the bad items as an example, we have the Copper Short Sword right here. It is the second worst item in the game so far that we've tested, and its small hitbox is making it only getting 0.66% of the value. That is because of one of these, this one right here. Hitbox is reasonable to hit enemies with, and I've decided on reducing it by 1/3 because only instead of 2/3, because it's actually not that unreasonable to hit. It's just that most enemies that jump around and are flying around are not going to be hit by it, but you can still very much so hit enemies that are just rushing at you. And 4 knockback is bad, but you attack so quickly that some enemies are still going to take some damage. It's still a bad sword, which is why it's getting 0.66% instead of 100, just regular 100% value. So it's still not good, but it's not as bad as I thought it was, and it actually has some use. And hammers, they get 1% because they can alter blocks, more short swords. You can see what's going on. And the sickle has a knockback less than 3, so it gets 10% taken away from it, but it can harvest hay or alter blocks, so it gets 1%. So there are a few weird values like this. They aren't that important. The numbers you need to look at are just the ending result of these equations. You don't actually need to remember any of this. That's for me to worry about. And this big description, it's just a brief description. So these right here, these ending values are also new, and these are what determine how good an item actually is. The other DPS to the left that we've been testing all these videos on are important, but these are the true values. This is essentially how I've gotten these numbers is I've taken a look at each item individually, I've seen what they can do, and I've added these values that I just explained over here. These values right here are how much the DPS is multiplied by. And right over here is how much that DPS before is plus that, or then multiplied by their value amount is equal to. So tiny bonuses like 1% don't do anything to the wooden hammer, while things like Meowmere get a much more substantial bonus, which Meowmere is at 2.09 because it gets 100 or 0.1, or no, not 0.1, just a solid 1 on top of its regular 1 for having projectiles that have no ammo cost. And then it also gets 10 for having auto swing, but then it loses 0.01 or 1% due to having its projectiles affected by gravity. So you take this value and then you multiply it by all of the tested Meowmere DPS over here, and then you end up with the actual value of DPS that the item is applying to you. So really, instead of looking at the DPS to the left, we're looking at these numbers. But really, these numbers are not completely accurate either, because what these are doing is showing you what it could possibly do. But what this does, it's less something you should be looking at and being like, oh, this is how much damage the Meowmere does. This isn't the amount of damage it does, this is the value it has. So don't look at these numbers and think, oh, the Meowmere could do between 5,000 and 7,400 damage. I think I might have said that by accident, but that's not true at all. It actually does 2,300 to 3,400 if you have endgame items, and not an unreasonable amount of menacing items. So I'm sorry if I said that and confused anybody, but this number over here, these numbers, these ranges are value, not actually the damage. And yeah, it's just the value that the DPS applies with its DPS range. So you can see that it's quite a bit higher than its regular DPS. And then we have, since it's a range, it's not completely accurate. Now we go to the averages, which are the lowest and highest numbers of the DPS value range added together and then divided by 2. So this is the average amount in the middle between those two amounts. So this is the amount that you will most likely see your Meowmere doing, or any of these weapons. You can see that a lot of these weapons that cannot hit multiple targets, it is the same number all the way across, while numbers are changing over the course of multiple tests because they can hit more targets. These will acquire more different numbers. And I think I should skip to the next part before I say any more about this, because it will make more sense. So all these averages are then added to this value, and then all those ranges, the lowest value is on the left and the highest is on the right. They are added together and they form this nice little graph. And this shows you the average value that you will get from each of these weapons against through all the tests I've done. So what this essentially means, all these random numbers that seemingly do nothing, is this is the amount of value that you will get out of all of these weapons. This is the lowest amount of value you can get, and this is the highest amount of value you can get if you're trying. Obviously, you can get less value if you're just aiming backwards or something. And then this value is this is the value you should be looking at more than the range, because this is the value that across all situations, across all tests, 1, 5, 3, 10, 20, this is the amount that is pretty much consistently what that item is worth. This value right here is essentially the hidden value that determines how good an item in Terraria is. And this value is what actually, from now on, is going to determine the leaderboards. You might have noticed that a few things have switched around, like short swords have gotten better. I need to change the number still. Like some of these are not accurate anymore, like this is 12. And this is 13, but I'm going to change the how I rank items from just my gut feeling, what it looks like, just based on DPS, and that's the only thing I'm testing, to a series of numbers, a series of values that all link together and form a system that will show us exactly which item is better. And I just wanted to explain this so that it's not confusing, because I definitely don't want to say everything I just said right now, every single video, because it's been 20 minutes. I don't want to spend 20 minutes at the beginning of every single video I do just explaining my stupid equations and bullshit. So, to sum it up, I added a bunch of shit that doesn't really matter, and I've added a new algorithm into my ranking system that determines which items are number 1, and exactly how. Because your gut feeling can only do so much. Like, the sickle looks like it's better than the platinum short sword, but if you look at what the platinum short sword can actually do, and you just look at, it's like, sure, it's a small hitbox, but it's still, look at the value it gives in most situations compared to the sickle, which is right below it. 15 and 16. 510, 498. They're actually incredibly close in terms of how much they can help you out on the battlefield. So it's just interesting to see items in Terraria pictured as if they were numbers, they were values, and it's just a cool way to look at the game, in my opinion, because I really like numbers, as you could probably see. A cool thing that I think is really funny is how OP Meowmere is. 114,000 value points. That's fucking crazy. It's just like a high score in a video game or something. Just like trying to beat this is going to be difficult. I'm thinking that the Imp Staff should be able to easily beat this. It might even be better than the Knight's Edge just based on what it can do for you. But we'll see in the video. I'll do the video next. Get it over with. But for now, thank you for watching. Subscribe for more Terraria item verses. I promise I won't explain this too much in any of my future videos. But thank you for watching. Have a good night. I'll see you in the next one.